Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 34th episode of Book of Hours, the House of Light expansion, our first run through YouTube. And I managed to get everything done in sort of one recording session, although I had a long break in between. So let's carry on with the rest of the day. So there's a number of things that are sort of already in progress. We're going to be leveling up. Sorry, we're going to be acquiring and then leveling up Trides Mahaira. We can also add Path and Pilgrim. We only have one level of that, but we can at least get it on the list. And I think what we'll do, I didn't quite sort out for myself which of these skills I wanted to use. There's a small temptation to use the to keep the satisfaction. The problem is that anything that I like, unless I use something right away, everything but the confounding parable runs the risk of being overwritten by an interaction with one of the assistants. So I don't know. We'll play it honestly as usual. We'll play it by ear. But for now, I can at least kick the can down the road a little bit by bringing in Path and Pilgrim. So use this lesson to acquire a new skill. So yeah, the argument in favor. So let me just work this out. So we get 6 from the satisfaction. Right, so I think the claim here was going to be that I would throw the core at it. That actually really isn't a convincing enough reason for me to use that. I'm actually slightly more inclined towards keeping the confounding parable because it has 3 different aspects, and it's one that I can't, that won't be overwritten by another character. Another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms. The traveler is always returning. One who does not is no traveler. Aaron Peel. So we'll move these down. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. So one last run with the Sweet Bones. It is summer. I am sitting on the bench outside the Sweet Bones, eating crumbly cheese in nettle wrappings and good black rye bread, soaking up the sun. So again, we're going to use Denzel to open up the abandoned librarian's quarters. If I can, it would be nice to get him to just get one more memory. But speaking of using memory, so Trides Mahaira uses Grail and Moon. This means that the Old Wound, Confounding Parable, and Satisfaction are eligible for leveling it up. And in this case here, I'll just double check that. Yeah, in this case here, I'm going to use the Satisfaction because for the reason that I mentioned before, we want to try and make it so that... Oh, hang on. Right, I was going to use the Tryst. But yeah, we're going to hang on to the Confounding Parable just because it's the one that I know I'm not going to lose through conversations with other characters. There's always more to learn. Now, if I want to try and... if I'd like to try and do some gardening, I probably want to sort that out within the next minute or so. I'm less likely to do that. I think I'd more likely use the core to do some cooking. But I want a clearer idea on what's happening with the Asite supplications. So we're going to want to level up Stone Stories. Now that actually raises an interesting problem here because that's only Nectar and Scale. But then I had to do that with the health. Right. So I've created a small complication for myself, but I actually was expecting... I was sort of expecting this. The only catch is that I'm going to have to go and renew the health right away. Okay, that's fine. We'll make this work. Trides Mahaira, the rites of the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot, which include certain mysteries of the dwellers in the wood behind the world. So this does invite the question, what do I think I'm doing with the Tryst? I can't see a situation where I'm going to use it to level something up. I guess the thing I would like to see would be what am I using to level stone stories up. So neither of these are going to work as is. I'm sure the text will give me something that I need, but I actually want to verify that before I commit anything. But I think probably what happens here, I can use the Tryst to make another cat wink. And then the core, likely some kind of cooking, but we'll see. All right, the Assite Supplications, prayers addressed to the Horned Axe by the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot. If we should pass not, let our enemies pass unto their deserved end. One prayer describes how sufficient moon aspect can be used with Tridesma Hyra and almost any egg to hatch the stone's children, the sky's daughters, the sea's sons. So this gives us an impulse. Oh, and 2 stone stories. That's going to make things a little interesting. Should have paid closer attention to that, I think. All right, which one of you was my impulse? I believe this one. Yeah. Okay, so we'll stick with the plan. We'll wait the 1 second on this side. But yeah, we have, like I said, we have what we need to level up stone stories. I just need the time. So I think we will take the Tryst. I will make the cat wink. Brew an ink that will ward off worms, although only the least of their kind. The core is a little bit more of a question mark. I still think we should probably, yeah, I think probably continuing to focus on the salon. Well, not exactly focus, but continuing to work on the salon would be a good idea. So I could cook the beef. I think, yeah, we'll cook the beef. Roast a beef joint, a dish with edge, forge, heart, and scale. I suppose one other consideration I could have before I do that. So under people that I could invite, Schaller is looking for heart, which I can actually provide. Well, then again, I could theoretically provide scale, so there isn't an argument for going for scale over those other ones. I was just trying to think if there's an argument that I can make for bringing someone other than Fraser Strathcoyne in. Not based on what I'm seeing here. So let's roast the beef. We don't need to make this hard. So roast a beef joint, a dish with edge, forge, heart, and scale. And if it comes down to it, all of these still give me options for the people I would normally be inviting to the salon anyway. Okay, to the sweet bones. Better now. So originally I would have used the shop to make a bit of, well, yeah, actually if I would have used it to make a bit of money, then just as well that I'm not using it that way. Let's take our health, so tuppence to restore that. I'll only need 30 seconds overnight, so we'll be fine. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal and a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. We will then take the shaft. Not too much to do with that. I mean, I could maybe read a book and have a element of the soul that I carry over. I don't really think that's a good use of the time, so I'll roll the dice on the shaft. We'll get the Curia period book. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's Curia period, roughly the 1700s to 1800s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. And this is largely at this point, I just kind of want to clear out the shelves of the unknown text. It would just be nice to have a little bit more of a plan in terms of how I'm going to move through the Tree of Wisdoms. But I think once the cataloging is done, it wouldn't hurt for me to to take stock and think about how I'm going to level everything up, particularly now that I have another language. So I've learned enough to puzzle out books in this language, though it might be slow going. Kilisimi. If there is speech in nowhere, if there is a language used by the dead, if the House of the Moon has a native tongue, then it must be Kilisimi. If none of this is true, it is still not a language to be spoken in daylight. Each word breathes woe. Read it, as they say, and weep. So it has moon and winter aspect. Also can be committed to Bosk or Skolakosophy, which of course means that we're going to make a choice in terms of where we place this. So I do have some options, and again, one of the questions that I run into when placing languages is, do I go for sort of my short-term expediency, or do I try and follow through in terms of an overall grand plan? So again, we already made a choice in terms of Hyksos. So do I want to try and level it up and, go for level 2 with the Kilisimi, or do I just put it at the root of Bosk? And in this case, placing it in Bosk seems to make the most sense. Although, of course, an extra heart is not exactly what I needed right now. I probably should have thought about that ahead of time, actually. The Weaver's Tale. There is a prophecy among weavers of one who will unwisely seek to find the future in a tapestry of her own hair. Her house will grow dark, shrouded in the labyrinths of her tresses. Pilgrims will seek her in the cellar of her house, where she will plead with them to cut her free. They will always fail, and she will always devour them. At last, one will come who will ask instead to stay with her. Others will join them, until the house becomes a palace, and the palace a city. Below the world, where all are welcomed, and in the tapestry all truths are revealed. This technically didn't get us anything new except for the extra health, but as it happens, that extra health is useful in its own way. So, I don't think. Well, okay. I'm going to do something a little counterintuitive here, and that's going to be. I'm actually going to drop what? No, I can't. Oof. I think if I drop water, I'm going to potentially lose the health for the next day. Well, you know what? I wasn't counting on having it, so let's give it a shot. So the reason why I'm doing this is that I already know that I'm getting the health, but I'm getting the health at a time when I was going to use it within 30 seconds. So in this case here, I'm just trying to find a use for it. But if it winds up going too long, that's a shame. I did a bad, but it does at least give me the option of, like, I'm not going to be making any decisions that I didn't already have planned over the course of the day. So, okay, The Three and the Three, Karashim manuscript, a more recent version of a much older text. This book describes the operations of the Chancel and the Calyptra, two triads of hours with subtle, far-reaching powers and responsibilities. It has been heavily censored, but even so contains potent secrets. So I should just double-check that doesn't have... Yeah, we don't have any scary curses on it. Not even remotely close with the well. Okay, a dripping. We'll put that in the kitchen, or the pantry rather. Alright, dark and pungent. The smell of catwink puts off vermin, but it is very difficult to read in sunlight. An ink of containment. Alright, better now. So, last step. We will put something into Stone Stories. There's always more to learn. And then overnight we will put the confounding parable in its place. So now that night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. Dreaming on a memory will preserve it passed on, allowing you to keep it until the following day. So I am going to have a couple of open questions for the later part. Also, I'm wondering, did I feel like I might have made a mistake and there's just an inexplicable hole here. Yes, the question will be, do I want to raise the stone stories to a higher level, or do I want to maybe use this to bring up something like wolf stories? Right, the skill is now level 2, its power aspects have also increased. Okay. You know what I forgot to do? Open up the abandoned librarian's quarters. I was too busy thinking about other things. Okay, not the most efficient day, but we'll get over it. There's not that much that I need to worry about. So, speak with Denzel. I'm always welcome at Denzel's smithy. I will actually farm him for memories because those are going to be useful with what we've got left over. Now I'm going to take a second here and see. I just wanted an idea of where the stone stories might fit in the overall picture. It is worth noting, of course, the infestations, so I may want to put that a little bit higher for some of the others. And then I guess the other question is, with birdsong and preservation, I think preservation I was actually going to start that one at level 3. You know what? I'm actually going to just take a second here and I want to have a proper think on this one. I can actually see a pretty good argument for pushing further on this one. There's a slight drawback in the sense that, well, you know, even then, the extra nectar is not something to be too upset with. Okay, so the more I'm thinking of this, the more I think Stone Stories level 3 is where I want to go. So, now that I'm thinking along those lines, I'm going to need to find a scale and nectar memory. So I'll set aside the health here. I'll maybe wait on... I'll wait on conversations with Denzel before I decide if I'm going to commit any more elements of the soul to pursuing those memories. And I guess the question now is, do I want to try any of these other books? I think for the first batch, I'm actually going to see what we get with Denzel. So let's see what the weather brings, but I think today we're going to do Salem prep, and then we're going to do... Okay, so that sunny day doesn't change the calculation at all. So I should be opening up the containers at some point. We should have 3 of those that I want to open at some point. But I do also want to get the inks ready to go. So let's do this in order. So Cantwig, again, we want a minimum of 4 here. For Salon, I believe it was potatoes and then magnificent roast potatoes. So I'll go for the magnificent roast potatoes now. We'll do that with the Arab. Roast potatoes magnificently, a dish with edge, forge, grail, and heart. I also believe I don't... Oh no, sorry, I still have mackerel. So I should actually probably do a little bit of fishing as well, but let's maybe do the fishing after I take care of the catwink. So the jumble, the beef, the magnificent roast potatoes, and then we will need the potatoes. So the question here is, what element of the soul do I give up for that? I guess probably we can use the shaft in this case. So identify as potatoes. These are potatoes. Spectacular. And as usual, we will use the metal to catalog a book. We probably would have had some more cataloging to do if I'd remembered to open the librarian's quarters, but as it is, this is the last of my current batch. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's Solar Gothic period, roughly between the 1000s and 1500s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. Now, I'd like to make a bit of a surplus of catwink, and that's because I can easily get rid of the winkwell on the radical measure. For those who do not sleep, the keeper skin is the bigger question here, but I think we have... It wasn't Stone Stories that did it, was it? No, that's for infestations. I really thought I had something to help with the keeper skin. Witch worms. So that's winter infestations. Now, unfortunately, none of these really help. They're good with infestations. They're just not good for the infestations that I'm currently working with. And then the theoplasmic contamination, again, I think this one we're coming up short, but I don't remember it as well, so I don't think it hurts to just take a peek and see what we're up against. So quenchings and quellings and meniscate reflections. So edge, heart, and winter. Okay, so... not surgeries and sanguinations, but quenchings and quellings. We still need to get the sufficient heart, but I'm thinking if we have a core, maybe, well, on its own, right, we'll get 3 with the quenchings and quellings. So in theory, if we had a storm, I could use that. Now, that seems like a pretty weak use of a storm. Keonid Abydos is, in fact, one of the few winter books I can probably read, but still... I'd probably want to use the storm to open up another room. But it gives me an option. In any case, the focus for today is really going to be on getting the memories from Denzil rather than the book. So Denzil rarely works for free, but he won't take payment for helping a friend. Speak to Denzil. He might even reply. Add something to enhance Denzil's effectiveness for the day, or just talk. So... here we're going to use the shaft again to earn some money. We'll just keep cycling through that. And here are the potatoes. So that gives me something to use the core for, if nothing else. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. So this is just going to sit in the inventory for a bit. I don't think I'm going to go any further on... I don't think I'm going to go any further in terms of reading for today. I have way more water than I know what to do with, but... them's the breaks. I should probably also talk with Denzil about the square, just to get that out of the way. The Gospel of Nicodemus. Now, I don't actually think I've read this one before. An apocryphal account of the works and experiences of the shepherd illuminate by one of his supposed companions. So, I can read this. Okay, fear. That's a good start. He does a lot with silence, this man. So let's give him the square. I can lend my assistant something to help, increasing their abilities. If it really gets desperate, I can keep one of the tryst, and instead of making a cat wink, I can use that to read something that'll get me an impulse. But the hope here is that over the course of talking with Denzel for the day, we'll wind up with an impulse. I guess a hindsight would also give us the scale that we need. Okay, the magnificent roast potatoes are ready. Right, sorry, I did these first, and then we're going to do the ordinary roast potatoes. I'll save that for later in the day, though. Again, we're sort of in flux until we see what Denzel winds up giving me. Okay, now I think I can probably justify another cat wink, because we've got 2 of them. Or rather, we have 2 tryst, and then, well, we actually have 2 cat wink too, but that's 2... Yeah, so that's... my insurance policy is the tryst, which means, of course, the core will be used to roast the potatoes. The health is going to be what I use to level things up. Speak to Denzel. He might even reply. And better now. So, and then we'll keep cycling through the shaft to make some money. We may... I'm trying to remember where we are in terms of the overall order. So I may be at a point where I'm not able to use it at the end of the day, but if I get the chance to, I'll take the opportunity. It's also possible that this episode will end before the end of the day, but honestly, this is a little bit more of a maintenance term. It's not, it's not completely, because obviously I'm making some decent progress in terms of the salon, but in addition to the... Oh, brilliant. Okay, so we're actually ahead on leveling up Stone Stories. Alright, I'm no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. Improve the skill to level 3. Now, one of the drawbacks about trying to rush into this salon at this point is that I don't really have that much more in terms of my elements of the soul. So I do like that I sort of have the options available to me. So what I mean by that is that we have a fair amount of time in terms of the season ready to go. I have a number of books that I should be able to read without, even if I don't have any commitments that I make to the Tree of Wisdoms. But in terms of new languages that I've gotten and such, really it's just the Kilisimi. The Kilisimi gave me a health, which I don't seem to have used as in a salon yet. And then I haven't the Skolakosophy and Bosk paths that I have, I don't really think I've had anything that I need from them. So essentially, until I can get that access to, to the Fet and the Whist, I'm sort of going to be coming up short during some of those salons. So again, basically I don't want to overstate the value of what I've got here, but on the other hand, I think it is worth reflecting on the fact that there are a number of texts that I can now try and read. And specifically what I can do with them is I can actually use them to sort of carve a path through the Tree of Wisdoms. So in terms of things that are sort of locked off to me right now, like I can commit to, once I get the languages, I can commit to Nyctodromy, Illumination, Ithistry, and Oromachistry. But the really tricky thing that I want to do here is for Nyctodromy, or I guess Hushery, really. Like, really what I want to do in terms of this part of the tree, I want to go through Scolacosophy, down to Nyctodromy, up back to Hushery. So that's going to be a pretty tough path to follow in terms of, like, in terms of just getting early or easy access to Hushery. And that's, like, I signed up for that, basically, when I made the choices that I did. So, you know, that's on me. I should probably reflect on how badly I want this. And if I do, right, then that means that I should actually be prioritizing the Scolacosophy skills, even if they don't necessarily help me read the books that I want. Just being able to navigate the Tree of Wisdoms to finally make it to the Hushery branch, maybe that's enough. Although, of course, I'm also going to have to level up the things for the Hushery branch. That's the catch of this approach. Likewise with Birdsong, right? If I'm willing to make a few commitments early on into Birdsong, well, we know that we're going to go a certain distance with certain things. Actually, was that true? Because I think Birdsong... Nope, Birdsong may actually wind up getting a 2. That surprises me a little bit, actually, but... excuse me. But again, the ideal would be I sort of have these 2 big pillars. So one would be Scolacosophy, one would be Horamachistry, and both of those wind up enabling access to Birdsong and Ithistry, or in this case, Hushery and then, Nyctodromy and then indirectly Hushery. But because I don't necessarily want to wait multiple seasons, so in theory, I have 4 seasons minimum to fill out all of those base routes. In reality, it's probably going to take longer. If I find some way of making an Orpiment Exultant, I could try and bring Hokabald in and get him to teach me Deep Mandaic. But honestly, do I want to blow an Orpiment just for the language lesson? That doesn't seem like a very effective method. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have a little bit of a think of this on this. I think probably, hopefully between now and recording in the next week. Whoa! I didn't mean to do that. Somewhat pockmarked with cigar burns. Don't you just hate it when you're sort of browsing through an interesting old house and all of a sudden you wind up carrying a big chair? But yeah, I don't think it would be a bad idea for me to have a bit of a think on this and maybe sketch out a more explicit path, and I'm going to see if I can pull that off between now and the next episode. But that's not something to deal with tonight. Do I ever need to get to bed? All right, thank you very much for watching. I will see you after the weekend. Until then, take care.